Hello, and welcome back to the Cinema Lounge. My name is Garrett. Here we chill and we talk about movies. It has been probably a full month since we last talked. I think last time we spoke was when a new trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home came out, and now it is out and has been out for 2 weeks. So I guess that's all that really happened. Sorry I missed so many weeks. Ended up getting really busy for the month of December, which is, that's crazy. Had a bunch of big projects to wrap up. Not my final, but a semester of school. And then I, like the day after, I got a call and got hired to work in another state, far away from all this. So, yeah, that it was a fun experience, but I'm ready. I'm glad I'm back home. I'm ready to just sit back, relax, and get back into the flow of things. I got back from out of state a little over a week ago, I believe, or maybe 2 weeks. No, 2 weeks ago. Last week, forgot about this being a thing and went, oh shoot, I guess I forgot to film an episode of the podcast. So we're back today. We're just going to jump into it. I'm going to be counting down my top 10 movies of 2021 to celebrate the year being over and hopefully this year being better. Because yes, last year was freaking crazy, kicking off in January and all the stuff that happened with that, and then just trickling down. It felt like every week there was just this big thing that everyone was flipping out about. Hopefully we can relax, but knowing human nature, knowing how just inherently petty and just childish we are, dude, I mean, it's probably going to be just as crazy of a year. But that being said, I'm going to count down my top 10 favorite movies of the year. I'm not going to do a separate episode to count down my top 10 least favorite, or like top 10 TV shows or actually, I might do top 10 anticipated next week, but I do this weekly. It would be really it would be really tedious to try to stretch all those lists out over the course of like literally a month. So instead, I'm just going to kind of throw in my top least favorite, worst, whatever, because come on, if you haven't seen any of the movies in my bottom 10, you're not going to watch them. But yeah, I hope you guys had a great Christmas, a great New Year. I'm ready to start this year. I hope Christmas went well for you. I'm about to go back to school here in a couple weeks, and I'm a little ready, but I'm also not ready. I'm ready. I'm happy, just relaxing where I'm at. So, yeah. Before we get started with the top 10, however, I want to throw in some honorable mentions. These will be like really quick. I'm just basically going to go through my 20th pick to my 11th real quick and just run through them. First, we're going to go with number 20. That will be Seven Prisoners. It's a Brazilian movie about child trafficking that unexpectedly turned into a tragedy for me. I had knew nothing going into this movie, but just the direction in which our main character goes in this is just tragic and very engaging. So I really enjoy. Well, I didn't enjoy this movie. I really liked it. It was very well made, and it was a very engaging story about betrayal and just the difficult choices you're presented when you get dealt crappy hands in life. Number 19 will be Batman: The Long Halloween Part 2. The first part I thought was good as well. This part is just a bit more conventional Batman, with a lot more villains, but what really grabbed me about this movie in particular was the downfall of Harvey Dent into Two-Face, as well as exploring what these mob boss, or this mob family, reacting to the rise of supervillains, because this is early in Batman's career. I think only like the Joker maybe Um, and like a handful of supervillains have actually been present at this point in time for Batman. And where we're at, like the Falcone, the Maronis, or the Falcone and the Maronis, they're the top dogs. Sal Maroni, and I forget Falcone's first name, but these guys are the top of their food chain, and suddenly these supervillains show up. How do you deal with that as just normal like mob boss guys who are strictly just by the books, like we have our rules or whatnot, and then suddenly you're getting kidnapped by Joker in the middle of the night, and he's just gonna taunt you and leave you tied up in your room just because he can. That's inherently interesting to me. I really enjoyed this movie. Probably a lot more than other people did, and I think it ended up being my favorite comic book movie of the year. I'll address that in a second. Number 18, Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson, gives us another banger of a movie. It's just a nice, relaxed, chilled hangout movie. I do wish some of the side characters got a bit more screen time, especially Bradley Cooper. Oh my gosh, he was hilarious in this movie. It's a very witty, very funny movie. I remember several jokes, especially Gary's joke when he's on stage and he just goes, "Yeah, no, I've been in Three Beavers since." The Three Beavers joke. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. But yeah, very witty movie. Only reason it's not on the list, and the only thing that kind of holds it back, it's a love story at its core between a 15-year-old and a 25-year-old. That's just really weird to me as someone who didn't grow up in the 70s, where I guess it was more normal. I'm a 2000s kid. I am a Gen Zer. I'm a Zoomer. And growing up, I lived, I don't know how this was for other people my age, but the way I grew up, you stuck to people in your own grade. You didn't really think about people outside of your own grade until maybe halfway through high school. And that's when you started to date a person a year older, a year younger than you. We didn't really like go outside of that age boundary. So to me, dating someone, going out with someone, falling in love with someone 10 years apart when you're a teenager is just really weird to me, and I couldn't get over it for the sake of the movie for the most part. And I do wish there was a bit, because of that, I wish the ending was a bit more vague. That's all I'll say about that. Highly recommend it. It's in theaters. 17, Encanto. I did not expect to like this. By all accounts, I didn't go see it in theaters because I thought, I'm going to hate this movie. Especially after watching Raya and the Last Dragon, which I thought was very mediocre. This movie, though, it grabbed me in a way I did not expect. I watched it when it came on Disney Plus, and I was like, the music was surprisingly good. I'm not a huge fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda. But this is the best out of, I think, 6 musicals he did this year. All the rest of which I wasn't a huge fan of the music, because they just all sound the same, except maybe Tick Tick Boom. That was more musical, Broadway-esque, which I have my own problems with Broadway musical music, but at least it was different. But this blends the Colombian environment and incorporates that into the music, doesn't heavily focus on the Manuelian rap style, which is just, I don't like. There's only maybe, I think, the We Don't Talk About Bruno's the only song that was like, it's getting a bit Manuelian. I'm gonna start saying that. But besides that, oh my gosh, the family drama. Like I was completely sold on that. I got so invested in these characters. Each character pretty much got a song or a verse or something to allow their personal worldviews and their pressures and their struggles being in this specific family to be developed or at least fleshed out. I do wish some of the characters got a bit more screen time to get to know them a bit better, but besides that, very good movie. 16, Little Fish. It's a very light sci-fi love story that made me cry a little bit. It's about this couple dealing with this sci-fi futuristic virus that basically just makes you lose your memories until you just don't have any and you die. It's basically like dementia if it affected young people or people all across the age spectrum. And it's this couple trying to deal with this. And it's very sad. And this is one of three movies I'm gonna talk about today that involves the main plot involves one of the main characters dealing with an illness, a deadly illness that affects their I think specifically their mental faculties, but just in general a part of their body. Which I noticed after watching this. It's like, oh, you know, the recent personal events in my life where about a year and a month ago, actually probably by the time this posts, maybe a little under a month, but my mother passed away a year and almost a month. I think it was the 9th of December 2019. So going into 2021 or 2020, December 9th, 2020, 2021, there were a lot of movies that I started to notice, and I was like, oh shoot. I was like, okay, so these types of movies, while also just being good movies in their own right, and I've seen on many people's at least top 20s of the year, they hit me on a different level because of recent events that I had to deal with. And some of these kind of helped me process, I guess, through that a little bit. So I have soft spot for these. Number 15, The Last Duel. A really good, like, basically three-way character study, which was really cleverly done. I was worried a little bit by the framing device because they could have gone a more strictly modern political messaging, which they didn't, and I appreciated. Didn't watch House of Gucci. I heard that one was bad. So as far as I know, this is the best Ripley Scott movie of 2021. I think it's one of his best in a long time. Great performances. I didn't get tired of seeing this horrific event told from three different perspectives. It was very interesting. I appreciate movies, especially kind of more judicial movies, that explore human perception and how we perceive events, even if we're both in the room when those events happen, how we personally perceive them and retell them. Because I know personally for me, if I tell a story about any of my personal experiences and then I tell someone else the next day, it's going to be completely different. I'm going to exaggerate different parts of it just because that's how my brain remembers it, or just trying to make it more exciting so I don't seem boring. But yeah, this movie's great. Highly recommend it. I do wish it could have been paced maybe a little faster, but being split up into three sections, explicit three acts, kind of helps you pace the movie pretty well. Number 14, Titan. I went and saw this in theaters for an assignment for class. Took one of my friends with me who doesn't really watch a lot of movies. His favorite movies are probably like the Fast and Furious franchise. So this movie's not that. It does involve cars, but in a more explicit sexual manner. Yeah, by all accounts, this should not have vibed with either of us. He's more strictly classic Hollywood blockbuster type person, and I'm much more like I like epic stories. I like these personal dramas, and this just came out of left field with it is a movie that I like. It's one of the biggest WTF movies I've ever watched, where I just kept looking over at my buddy. I'm just like, what are we watching? But in the end, I actually, we walked out of the theaters, and I'm just like, I was horrified watching that. But oh my gosh, if that isn't a fantastic movie. So I appreciate it for that. It made me terrified and like disgusted, but I still came out going like, but I really liked it, and I would not mind watching it again. It is the movie of the year that I would watch with people. This is the movie I right here is the movie that I would watch with other people just to see their reactions to it, because there is some messed up stuff in that movie, some really weird stuff, and I loved it all. Number 13, Nobody. I'm currently binge watching through Better Call Saul. I love Breaking Bad, favorite show of all time. So getting to see uh, Bob Odenkirk in this more action-oriented role. He's more known for his comedies in his early days with something like Mr. Show, but then kind of delving into the drama department, kind of where he gets to be the comedic relief. But this is the first time where he gets to be the action man. And I think he did a really good job. He trained for, I think, 6 months for this, and it pays off. Not as good as John Wick, but it comes pretty darn close. Plus, getting to see Christopher Lloyd just freaking blast goons with a shotgun when he's in his like 70s or 80s is just fantastic. Number 12, Val. It was a very interesting documentary, getting to see the world through Val Kilmer's eyes. I'm not really the biggest Val Kilmer fan. Haven't really seen anything with him in it, outside of Batman Returns. I haven't seen Top Gun. I haven't seen other stuff that I can't think of off the top of my head. So this makes me want to go see his movies more, but also just makes me want to sit down and talk to him, because he's a very interesting individual who has gone through a lot of hurt and heartache through his life, but keeps a smile on his face, seems to be a good influence on people. And I would love, there's like maybe like 10, if I were to make a top 10 list of people I would love to have on a podcast, maybe either this podcast or a show that I'm working on or something like that, he would be up there along with like Orson Welles. I know he's dead, but still, like, this is dream list. Either young intelligent Orson Welles or old drunk belligerent Orson Welles. He would be one of those people in the top 10 I would just love to sit down, have a beer or something that I actually enjoy drinking and have a conversation with. Number 11 is a movie called Our Friend. This is 2 out of 3 of movies about deadly illnesses. This is basically about Jason Segel moving in with this couple who he's friends with once the wife contracts cancer. Very painful movie to watch. I think she had, I want to say lung cancer or something. It wasn't brain cancer, but it was something similar. It was cancer. So this definitely also hit me on a very personal level, seeing, this friend be there for these people that he's really close with. It was very tough to watch, but it was also very heartwarming to see people come together in a time of need. Something that I experienced myself. And at the end, I was, tear going down my eye. So just for that got really close to the top 10. However, there are 10 movies that I think if you're going to watch anything this year, please watch this. Now, before we get into the top 10, I would like to add a caveat. There are some movies that I did not see this year, so please don't get pissed off at me. Didn't go see Spencer. I tried. I couldn't make it. There's going to be others that you'll probably think of. Didn't go to any festivals or anything like that, so don't expect any of those, like Drive My Car or Worst Person in the World. I also base this off of world premieres, just to be fair to people, because I know a lot of movie critics on YouTube put their top 10s together, and it's almost exclusively festival movies that won't be coming out to the wide public audience until 2022, 2023, or will just never show up ever again. I know, like, Memoria is just strictly staying in theaters, and probably never going to be able to see it because I don't live near theaters that would get that type of movie. So I want to be fair to you guys and fair to myself, because I also don't go to festivals all that much. I tried, and it just didn't work. So Yeah, it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, that being said, sorry, I got a Stream Deck for Christmas, so I'm messing around with that. So if I keep looking down and messing with that, I'm learning my way around it as we go. But yeah, so I guess with that being said, just don't get pissed off at me. I guess the big caveat will be I didn't see Spider-Man Homecoming or No Way Home. Or The Eternals. I know that's probably not what you're going to expect on this top 10 list, but after watching Shang-Chi, I was just kind of, Shang-Chi was very just like, it was good, but not like wowed me. So I was just, just kind of shrugged my shoulders. It was just kind of, that was the movie that kind of got me to just go, I don't know. Eternals came out and just felt very comfortable skipping it. And now Spider-Man No Way Home, I was in Oklahoma doing my job, working on a film set, which was really fun when it came out. So I didn't get to see it opening weekends. And then after that, I came home, got back into my routine, and I was just kind of like, I don't really care about trying to make time out of my day to go see it. So I went, like, Licorice Pizza and Kingsman were more on my radar, something I was more interested in because I thought at the very least I would get a very interesting experience. So I went and saw those instead of No Way Home. So don't expect that on the list. um. So yeah, it is what it is. I guess I'll watch it eventually, and I'll give you my thoughts when I do. But yeah, that being said, number 10 is Riders of Justice. It is I think it's a Norwegian movie, starring Mads Mikkelsen. I've kind of been on a bit of a kick with him after watching Another Round last year, and then The Hunt as well. He did a fantastic job, so I get intrigued when he starts working with his people from his homelands, because he gets to work with actors that that the broader American audience don't get to see all that often. So it's cool to get to watch Mads work with these actors that I don't usually see, because it's cool to see such a big name in America still willing to work with people that aren't maybe on his caliber or whatever. It clearly shows that he's not a man of pride, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think I'd see Chris Hemsworth or Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr., maybe Robert, but these like A-list actors, I wouldn't really see them working these small productions with these smaller directors, with these smaller actors, especially working on a movie that isn't a Hollywood production. So I just props to him for that. But also, the movie's really good. It's a dark comedy about this guy trying to find out who killed his wife. It's very, like, the setup's very much like Taken, but it almost evolves into this anti-Taken movie where it kind of explores through comedy and through drama the cost of all-out revenge against people, or being convinced that everything that happens is because of you, and leaving our main character to kind of just confront the kind of person he's becoming, while still trying to be that family man. And I think it does a phenomenal job at doing that. All right, number 9 is The Mitchells versus the Machines. Fantastic animated movie. Really good animation, really funny. It should not be funny, but it is, even though it does the contemporary internet humor, but I died laughing at all of it. There are really good heartfelt scenes between the family. Our main character was great. Yeah, it was really good. It's not as high up as I think a lot of other people have it. Just for me personally, child who sounds like an adult, it can can be a little weird at first. And I do think the whole like liar reveal, while handled mostly well, a little it was a little awkward for me. But that's it. Besides that, really fun movie, very endlessly rewatchable. You can just sit down with your family and just watch it over and over again. It's a movie that like you just sit down and have a fun time with, and that's what it is. That's what it tried to be, and it was that. What else can I say? Number 8 is Dune. Denis Villeneuve's new movie. I've been trying to watch through all of his stuff. I've seen most of his American movies. Prisoners is fantastic. Enemy is pretty good. I'm trying to remember what else he's done, but he's a very good director. I'm very happy that he's becoming a bigger and bigger name with each year, and Dune is kind of like his breakout into the contemporary movie viewing audience. It's this space epic that kind of combines what I would say combines a little bit of like Star Trek, Star Wars, and Game of Thrones into this giant socio-political landscape on this desert planet, as you have these two warring families working under this oppressive government while the natives of the planet try to fight for their way of life. It's very big in world. And that's part of what I love about it. The visuals are fantastic. The performances are fantastic. One of the best casts of the year. The production design is beautiful. And the only reason it's not higher up, because this honestly, I know a lot of other people have said this would have been in the top 5 if this wasn't a part 1. But because it ended so like obviously, oh, we're going to do another part to this, we kind of have to sit on our hands and wait for the finale to really get the full grasp of what Denis Villeneuve's doing, because the next movie can either make or break this. It can either elevate it, or it could be so bad that this movie just feels like a setup for nothing. So, for right now, as its own thing, really good. And I'm sure then they're going to stick the landing in the end with the character's growth. 7, Coda. It is a very heartwarming family drama. It felt very much kind of like an ABC special or something, in a good way. I mean that in a good way. I don't mean like, oh, this is TV quality, but it's just kind of, you're hanging out with this family as they're going through the hardships of life of being a deaf family living in a fishing town. They're fishermen, and just everything gels so nicely. Our main characters struggle with wanting to be a musician and a singer, while her family wants her to stay behind and continue to be a part of the family business. Is already a classic setup, but add on the layer where she's the only person who can hear in her family, and while the rest of her family's deaf, that creates very unique and interesting drama that I'm just drawn to, and I love it. Great movie. The only downside is that it's on Apple TV Plus, which no one has, so no one's gonna see this, which is unfortunate. Number 6 is Minari. Minari takes place in Arkansas, and that alone gets it into like my top 30 of the year. As a native Arkansan, every movie I've seen that has taken place in Arkansas, I've instantly liked just because it takes place in Arkansas. You have Clark Duke's Arkansas, you have Mud. There's been a couple of other movies and I'm trying to remember, but Mud was shot in my grandparents' hometown, which was really cool. I don't know where this was shot. I think it was shot in Oklahoma, but still, it takes place in Arkansas. I got to appreciate it. I also appreciate not portraying Arkansas as a bunch of crazy redneck racists. Because anytime Arkansas enters into the social discussion, it's basically just as Alabama's not not basically not as bad Alabama. um, and that is discouraging because I've been all over this state, and there are so many great people here. Whether you're talking up in Fayetteville and Rogers, or here in Central Arkansas with Little Rock, Conway, or you even go south to like Texarkana, DeWitt, Stuttgart, all this fun stuff. Even West Memphis. There's some great people here, and I love it when our state gets featured because we get dragged through the mud everywhere else. Now, the movie itself, Stephen Yeun, is slowly becoming one of my favorite actors in Hollywood today. Everything I've seen him in recently has been fantastic, and he's been great in. Getting to see him be this ambitious family man trying to make something for himself at the detriment of his family is a great, interesting struggle. I love. I'm pretty sure they're immigrants, so they're having to deal with this culture shock of being in the middle of nowhere. I think in Rogers, Arkansas, and interacting with the local people while trying to make a name for themselves and trying to start something for themselves, while their grandmother is very traditional and wanting them to stick to the ways of their homeland. Creates a very, I love stories about first, second generation immigrants where you have these two inherently conflicting ideologies and traditions and cultures, because it provides inherently interesting drama for me. It's just built right into the situation, and I think they do a really good job of capitalizing on that while being genuine and earnest with their storytelling and not relying on like the stereotypical way a lot of people present these types of stories. It's very much just, this is a community of people trying to make their own way, and this family is also a part of this community. I loved Will Patton's character in it, where he comes alongside them and starts to work for them, to try to help them as they forge this path for themselves. I love how Will Patton's character is just a wee bit loony, how he drags the cross. I forget however long, but he drags a cross across the road every Sunday instead of going to church. But it's a very good family drama that almost had me tearing up at a certain part. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, number 5. We're in the top 5. The Summit of the Gods. This has not been making it into anyone's top 10 lists, even though I've heard high praise for it. But it absolutely deserves to be in some people's top 10 lists. I'm just saying, this movie is gorgeous. The animation is beautiful. The characters I thought were really well done. It focuses on this investigative journalist as he tries to look into this tape of the first Everest expedition to reach the summit. And in doing so, he stumbles across this world famous mountain climber who lives on Everest and plans to conquer the peak. And it's a beautiful, interesting, investigative piece that turns into this character study of this mountain climber and the sacrifices and the trauma that comes with climbing mountains. And if something like Free Solo already didn't convince me yet, this movie has convinced me. Excuse me, sorry, I hit the mic. I am never effing climbing a mountain, ever. I have no interest scaling mountainsides, being a mountaineer, rock climber, or whatever, because that crap is terrifying to me. I already have like a mild fear of heights that I can I've mitigated over the years, but spread out on a freaking wall face, and like there's a commercial that shows this lady in a tent that's just hanging on a mountainside. That is scary as crap to me. I would never do this. That being said, the way they present it is beautifully done. I love the animation. I think it's based off of a Japanese manga, so that's fun. I did not know that until after I watched the movie, but the movie in and of itself, the two main characters and their relationship that kind of grows as this investigative reporter has his own way of thinking and trying to accomplish something at all costs while not understanding why this other guy is trying to accomplish something at all costs. It creates just this interesting ideology around mountaineering and around just human nature and why we have passions for things. And it especially helped me understand why people do things that I would consider inherently stupid or inherently just like irresponsible. Um, and granted, there are things that are inherently stupid and irresponsible, but there are things like mountaineering or, you know, what I'm doing right now, podcasting, or trying to get into the movie business. You know, you have the stereotypical parents who are like, oh, you're never going to make any money in the movie business. But that's my passion, helping to understand the need for people to pursue passions, pursue something that invigorates them, whether on a creative, intellectual, or just pure adrenaline level. There are different types of people, and this movie just encapsulates that so perfectly for me. I just love the moment before they go off on this, before our mountaineering character goes for the final push of the summit, and he turns to the investigative reporter, and it's just like, you asked me why. It's this little exchange where it's like, why do you want to do this so much? And he goes, why do you want to follow me? And it's just this really good clicking moment of just, this is what people are passionate about. This movie's just an embodiment of human passion for the things they do. And I love that. And it's kind of sad because holy crap, there is a moment about halfway through the movie that was very depressing. I'll just put it that way. All right, number 4, Pig, starring Nick Cage. Yeah, I mean, what do I say? It's Nick Cage starring in a movie where someone kidnaps his pig and he's gonna go to extreme lengths to get his precious truffle pig back. But, people said it was like John Wick. I went in expecting it to be John Wick, walked out going, so this is basically just like if John Wick starred in Ratatouille. This is a culinary movie. This is a movie about food and our relationship with food and our relationship with cooking and what cooking and making meals is supposed to be about. Kind of going along the lines of Summit of the Gods. It's about finding that passion and continuing to hold on to that passion and understand why that gripped you in the first place. Because along this journey, you meet so many characters who are disillusioned with the food industry, whether it's Nick Cage's character and just being an outsider and going, oh, this isn't worth it. I'm just going to do what I can to get by and forge this relationship with this pig, which is a very good one that also almost made me cry towards the end. Or whether it's Alex Wolff's character who just sees this as business, as the grind, getting that grind set. Adam Arkin's character comes in a bit later where he's almost like a bit of a mob boss, but he's very just disillusioned with the food industry because of his past. There's a chef at this restaurant who bakes this fancy crab and just waxes poetic about it to the customers, and Nick Cage is just like, why are you making this? You have no passion for this. You don't care about what you're making, so that makes this food inherently worthless. And it helps address this human desire to pursue what you're passionate about, especially when it comes to creation. If you are a creator, if you make YouTube videos, if you make podcasts, put your all into it, right? If you're making a movie, put your all into it. If you're making food, put your all into it. It's not going to be worth it unless you care about what you're giving to someone. If someone pays for something that you're going to create, if you're going to make a tricycle, make sure you pour passion into that tricycle, or else it's inherently worthless. It might run fine, but there's no love in the creation of it, so there's no love in the use of it. There's no love in the consumption of the product, which is something that's very applicable in today's consumerist culture. I'll just go that way. Oh, I'm sorry. Golly, I keep hitting the mic. This is what happens when you don't do this for like a month. But yeah. Well, that just broke my train of thought. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3, Demon Slayer, the movie. Hold on. This one has a freaking long title. I'll just call it like Demon Slayer, the movie. It's Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie Mugen Train. I think it was originally called Infinity Train, but then Infinity Train beat them to it, and that's a great show. I made an episode of the podcast about it. It's a really good one. But yeah, this movie freaking slaps, dude. Like, it is, it's really good. I've like got introduced to anime last year when a buddy of mine forced me to watch Attack on Titan, and now it's second or third favorite show of all time. So since then I've tried to branch out and find other things that people have recommended or that are highly regarded. I've watched Death Note and like a couple other things. Mostly it's been new stuff. I watched like Super Crooks on Netflix, which if you wait a second, I'll talk about that. Sunny Boy, stuff like that. But Demon Slayer caught my eye because I saw that there was a movie coming out to theaters, and I was like, anime has pretty good animation. It might be cool to see this on the big screen. So I binge watched the first season, which was really good. Went and saw this in theaters, and the entire time I was just like, what the heck? I was like, what in the heck is happening? I was like, the animation was beautiful. The action was fantastic. There's like a 25 minute fight scene between these two characters. And I just absolutely loved every minute of it. There's a big death at the end, which tugged at my heartstrings a little bit, but this entire movie's basically made for you to get to know one character from the show that I did not care about, did not like. Then we get an entire movie, and by the end of it, I was just like, oh crap, I actually kind of care about this guy. And I guess for that purpose, you can have your own thoughts about that. But for me, this was just a blast to watch. Just a very interesting movie. It takes place all on this train that's slowly being taken over by this demon. It's, as someone who's just like new to this and kind of viewing this medium, this, I guess, style of animation through these like childlike glasses, a lot of this kind of stuff wows me. So yeah, very big fan of this one. I know it's probably not going to be it for everyone. Number 2, The French Dispatch. I am a big Wes Anderson stan. I think I've loved everything he's ever done. Everything I've seen from him. Even like his weaker offerings, like I think my least favorite movie from him that I've seen is The Darjeeling Limited, is still such a fun time, such a classic, iconic film. And this movie's no exception. Oh my gosh, the witty writing in this, I think this might be one of his funniest movies. I loved all the characters. I loved how it kind of just basically takes, I think, 4 or 5 different short stories and presents them as these news articles in this paper. I thought it was really clever, and I think it helped flesh out the newspaper it's called The French Dispatch. So the movie is about this newspaper, and each story helps flesh out the personalities and the people working for this newspaper that crafts and makes the newspaper what it is. Very simple, very funny, gorgeous cinematography. I think this is my favorite looking Wes Anderson movie, second only to maybe Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think every frame in this should be on a wallpaper somewhere. I would buy a poster of each frame. I will storyboard the entire movie with all of its shots on my walls. I think it's the best looking movie of the year. And yeah, let's go to number one. Let's do a little bit of a build up. Let's do a little bit of a build up for this. I don't have a drum roll sound effect. I really should have thought ahead of it. So, number one, The Father. I know this made the festival circuits and got nominated for the Oscars this past year, but it came out to wide release in February. I watched it, and nothing has topped it. I kept looking for a movie to top it, but I just couldn't. And this movie is number one for one reason, and one reason only, on top of like all the other good stuff about this. As the credits rolled, I was bawling my eyes out. I collected myself after the credits were finished, stood up, walked out to my car, sat in my car, and then proceeded to cry for 15 more minutes. No other movie has had that much of an intense emotional response from me. And I think part of it is because I went and saw it in the theaters with other people. Part of it is because it came out in February, about 2+ months removed from a very tragic experience in my life that was very similar to what was being presented in the movie. And it also didn't help that I was holding together pretty well. Like, a tear was coming down my eye. And then 3 rows ahead of me, an old lady stood up, ran crying out of the theater, and that broke me. I was like, wow, this is really sad. This is really sad. And the lady stands up and goes, and I just go, oh, dude, oh my gosh. Like, that alone put this in the top, like, guaranteed a spot for this in the top 10 for this year. Just the sheer fact that I could not collect myself. I'm sitting in my car trying to start it and go back to class and go back to my dorm room or whatnot. And I'm sitting here going, and like there's these like punk kids out on the sidewalk, and they're just like talking to each other. They look over at me and they just see this like freaking 20-year-old man just sitting in his car. That alone guaranteed it a spot in the top 10. But to add on to that, because obviously that doesn't actually accurately describe what I'm talking about. Anthony Hopkins is great. Olivia Colman's great. I love the way they present dementia and Alzheimer's from the point of view of the patient, and how the world around him seems to change randomly, even though that's how he remembers it, but that's not how it is. It was brilliant the way it was presented. If I had any nitpicks, the way the narrative is presented might make it a little confusing to follow the story, because the story is kind of that the character can't remember what's happening. So that might make it a wee bit confusing. But everything else, I mean, it was so well done. They managed to make perfect use of the film medium. This is adapted from a stage play, and usually with stage plays, films just shoot it like it's a stage play and doesn't justify the fact that they're making it a movie. But just seeing kind of him walk into a room, walk out of a room, and walk back in, and suddenly everything's different instantaneously, where on a stage play, you'd have to like have them walk out, dim the lights, come back on, like change the set, turn the lights back on, and he walks back in. With this, it's instantaneous. You just see like the perfect morphing of the world around him, and suddenly like boom, he's in a hospital, boom, he's in his bedroom, boom, the picture on the wall, it's gone now, boom, Olivia Colman, yeah, no, she doesn't exist anymore, boom, the guy from Sherlock, the guy who created Sherlock and the terrible Dracula Netflix show, he's there to torture you. Like, it's so sad just to see the breakdown of one man who thinks he has his mental faculties together, but by the end, he's just a blubbering mess. And it just, for me, I really connected with it because I had watched that same thing happen over the course of the year prior, and basically being able to experience my mother's experience through the eyes of Sir Anthony Hopkins, being able to experience things from that point of view. While she didn't have Alzheimer's, she had brain cancer. It's a very similar experience of watching from the outside in, at least, seeing the breakdown of someone's mind, being able to be in their head as that happens. Like, that's what got me. And yes, I understand they're different diseases. I'm no medical expert, but I know that for a fact, and it affects the brain differently. But the base borderline of a deadly disease that affects your memory and your brain capacity and functioning, I was able to so completely lock in with that. And basically why I ended up just blubbering mess was Anthony Hopkins over the course of the movie started to morph into my mother, and that's just how I ended up perceiving the entire movie. So rename it to the mother, gender bend this movie and make the mother. No, but because I was able to so completely latch into this movie because of how specific my experiences were, and how they compared to this movie, allowed me to just emotionally invest in this movie so easily. So by the time the movie ended, I'm crying in my car while teenagers are looking at me and giving me this what's this guy doing? And for that reason, it's number 1 of the year. And that's my top 20 technically, but my top 10 of the year plus 10 honorable mentions. If you want to know my worst movies of the year, I'll go ahead and pull them up. I don't have images or anything for them because, like I said, you're not going to watch these, even if you can find them. But yeah, I guess, gosh dang it, my phone messes up all the freaking time now. For context, I saw 168 movies from last year. The most amount of new releases I've seen in a given year, because I had a lot of downtime and a lot of, I was commuting to school for this past semester, so I had a lot of time to myself because I had to come home for work, and then once I got off, it's not like I could call up any of my buddies to hang out because they're an hour away, so I had nothing to do but to sit here, twiddle my thumbs, and watch TV. So, here's my bottom 10. Let's go ahead and get that done with. So, number 10 would be Carnival. It is a Brazilian movie on Netflix. Very shallow. I hate all the characters, and I wanted to kill myself watching it. Number 9, Amazon's remake of Cinderella. I love contemporary fairy tales. The only reason it's not lower is because I died laughing when the rapping marching band shows up, and this dude, the lead guy, just unrolls a scroll, and it's just like, hear ye, we about to drop a beat, or whatever he was saying. That genuinely made me laugh. I don't think it was supposed to be funny, but that had me dying. The rest of the movie is a cringe fest that made me want to kill myself. Number 8 is the only movie on this list that I saw in theaters, Snake Eyes. Didn't expect it to be great, but the sheer fact that we didn't... Crap, man, I need to stop hitting my mic. The sheer fact that he doesn't become Snake Eyes until the last effing scene of the movie, he doesn't get the helmet, he doesn't do any of that, to the last scene of the movie, pissed me off. Also, the fact that Snake Eyes is supposed to be a silent assassin that took a vow of silence because his family died, only for this guy to basically try his freaking hardest to be Deadpool. We don't need a freaking quippy Snake Eyes. Like, this movie completely fundamentally misunderstood who the character is. I say that as someone who's not really invested in G.I. Joe, but get basic facts of the characters right, and that elevates the movie so much. But the fact that this wasn't, it basically called itself Snake Eyes and pretended like it was a Snake Eyes movie, I mean, that pissed me off, but also the movie just wasn't good. The only saving grace of it was Storm Shadow, but outside of that, it sucked. what are we on, like number 7? Number 7, Thunder Force on Netflix. Melissa McCarthy teams up with her husband to make yet another trashy quote-unquote comedy movie. Oh my gosh, it was cringe. The only good thing about it was Jason Bateman as a lobster man. That was it. Next is Home Sweet Home Alone. Once again, unfunny, soulless, cash grab. Why did they think it was a good idea to try to make the robbers sympathetic before we then proceeded to watch them get the absolute crap beat out of them by an entitled 8-year-old? I don't know why they thought that was a good idea, to basically go, yeah, these people are just good people, but they're also the bad guys, and we're gonna... It's like PG torture porn. It was uncomfortable to watch. The only good part about it was one joke where they think they're breaking into the right house, they kick in the door, and they walk in on just like this nice middle-class family, and they go, ooh. That was hilarious to me. Next is Deadly Illusions, also on Netflix. Came out in like January, and it's been on the bottom of my list for a while. It's just a mess, man. It's not made well. It's utterly confusing. Did not enjoy a single second. I went brain numb watching it. Number 4, Cosmic Sin. The most high-profile Bruce Willis direct-to-DVD movie of the year. Don't know why Frank Grillo's in it. Don't know why it was made at all. Looks cheap. Fried my brain. I wanted to kill myself. Number 3, He's All That, remake of She's All That, starring Addison Rae, who cannot act to save her life. She just resorts to TikTok dances. I don't know what else there is to say. Matthew Lillard's at the end, and that was a bright spot. And he said, like, let's just do it to get it over with. I was like, amen, Matthew. Let's just get it over with. I don't know why people thought that movie was a good idea. But our bottom 2, and this is basic. For me, these are interchangeable. Number 2 is Music, directed by Sia. This movie pissed me off so freaking much. Like, I don't usually get an emotional reaction from a movie, you know, even if it's something that I think is cringe, or I'm like, why are they doing this? It's usually just an eye roll and then move on. This movie got me actually pissed off. Just the way they portray special needs people, and the way it's like, oh, yo, they're such creative, and like, look, the lead girl, Maggie Ziegler, I believe, she does her best. Like, I'm not blaming this on her at all, but like, just the, and that's basically how Sia perceives special needs people. And then she goes inside her own head, and like, we get a 5-minute Sia music video, and then we go back to her just like flipping out, and then Leslie Odom Jr. hopping in and going, hey, do this. And then, you know, the thing he does in real life is actually very dangerous for mental, special needs people with, I guess, that specific condition where they're like, they have like a breakdown, and they're kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but he's like, oh yeah, just restrain them and lie them on the floor. And it's like, they hurt themselves more when you do that. Don't do that. That's explicitly advised against doing. And the movie's like, just do this to special needs people. It's like, no, don't do that. It was just like, this is the only movie I've probably ever seen where I said I genuinely got offended watching it. And then I was just like, I got more offended when we got to cut back to the Sia music videos. I'm just like, I don't know what's worse. I don't know what's worse. Like, improperly portraying, like, special needs people on this, like, hugely stereotypical level, or using it as a platform to jump off into your music video stuff and just going, yeah, we gotta see a music video. Come on, guys, dance. We're gonna distract you with all the pretty colors. Oh my gosh, this movie sucked. But it didn't suck as much as number 1, COVID-21, Lethal Virus. Usually I love schlocky direct-to-DVD stuff. I watched Virus Shark this year, and I was like, I mean, it barely missed my bottom 10, but the only reason it did was because I had fun with it. This movie is a slog to get through. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. And it's the hardest thing I've had to watch because it's so boring, so poorly made. It felt like no effort was put into it at all. And it was just like it was painful to watch because it was a basic zombie movie that they decided to call COVID-21 because gotta stay relevant and clickbaity. And it was just like I wanted someone to put me out of my misery watching this more than any other movie this year, and that's why it's bottom. It was so freaking bad. But yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up with this. I'm gonna give you 10 TV recommendations, just to kind of put a bow on this. I'll give you my top 10 shows. I didn't watch a lot, but out of the stuff I watched, I think this is the stuff that needs to be watched the most. 10, Super Crooks. Really fun, like Ocean's 11 type vibe. Based on Frank Miller comics, but made by an anime company. It created this really nice, fun vibe. Ties into Jupiter's Legacy a bit, but stays disconnected enough to where like they can do their own thing. And I think it was done really well. Mayans MC had their third season come out this year. I'm a big Sons of Anarchy fan. If you can't tell, I'm wearing my Reaper Crew hat right now. But yeah, this is a spinoff of Sons of Anarchy. I'm really enjoying it. I think this season was pretty good. Close Enough season 2, season 1 I think was better, but this season still kept up the momentum of just basically doing regular show, but in a more TV 14 to TV MA setting, and I think it works so well. Season 3 of What We Do in the Shadows, this show continues to be a banger. Just having consistently clever, funny jokes in situations where I'm just dying laughing consistently. Great show. Only Murders in the Building caught me completely off guard. I saw it come up on Hulu and I was like, oh, this is going to be trash. Selena Gomez teaming up with like Stephen Martin and Martin Short. Like, this can't be good. And I saw like one good review for it and I'm like, oh, it's like IMDb rating was like a 8.1. I'm like, that's actually not bad. People seem to like it. I might give it a chance. And I just got sucked into the mystery of everything happening. I thought the true crime podcasting thing would be really cringe within the context, but the way it's executed and the way it's used as this framing device for the story as a whole, how each episode chooses a different character within the building to focus on to further flesh out this environment and this community of people living in an apartment building was so well done that by the end of the season, I had gotten to know so many people living in these apartment buildings and some of their past and their passions and what they do and what they aspire to be, why they're living in this apartment, why they're in New York, and how each person has their own aspirations. One person is a big television actor. One person is a theater director. One person has this troubled past, and she just can't get out of this building. You have a bassoon player, a grocery store tycoon and his deaf son. You have crazy cat man. All these people living in this one environment and their conflicts creating this murder, and it's up to two old men and Selena Gomez to figure out who the murderer is and create a crime podcast about it. And it was very interesting. I thought it was very good. Number 5, Final Space Season 3. It's the final season of Final Space. Unfortunately, it got canceled, so it ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, which I was very sad about. But I think it still works as a light finale. I consistently love the characters and the animation. The only thing that holds it back is a bit of the jokes. But this season, the jokes kind of fit better into the story, and the story in and of itself, the drama was cranked up to 11, and it got so much more engaging than the past couple of seasons, where each episode I felt there was emotional beats it was hitting very well that I bought into. um Highly recommend it. Go support Olin Rogers' show. He was one of the OG YouTubers I started watching as a kid, and I'm very happy and proud of him for how far he's come, and it's a bit of an inspiration for me. It's like, oh yeah, I can be sitting at my desk talking to 12 people every week and suddenly create a show and be in charge of it. That would be awesome. So I I'm a very big fan of Olin Rogers. I think this show in and of itself is just a big inspiration for me. And it was gone too soon. Let's push for season 4, guys. Number 4, Invincible season 1. My only gripe is that the animation needs to be way smoother. But besides that, I read the comics over the summer. Dude, oh my gosh, this show's freaking insane. Everyone and their mom is talking about it, so go watch it. Like, if you haven't, what are you doing with your life? Come on, go watch Invincible. Number 3, Family Man Season 2. Family Man is an Indian action show on Amazon Prime that I just stumbled upon one day and decided to watch the first season. And I'm like, what the crap? Why is this show so good? It's like this espionage show that is straight, like the entire premise of the show and every story beat in the show is based off of headlines in India. So not only am I watching a really engaging spy thriller with really good action, each season has had, I think, 2 one-take action set pieces. There's a hospital raid, there is a shootout at a police station, there's this freaking epic confrontation at the end of season 2 where they're on an airstrip, and it's so good. There's a one-take car chase that turns into a foot chase. Cannot highly recommend this show enough. But then also, as I'm watching this, learning about the cultural conflicts and some of the politics and the laws and just the societal conditions of India as I'm watching it is just, that makes it makes this show like boost it in my favorites, because I'm learning about the intricate politics and socioeconomic conditions of another country while I'm watching this really engaging story, and it never overtakes it. It always feels natural. And if I didn't read in the credits based off of headlines, I would have just gone with this as, oh yeah, this was a cool story. But the fact that this is basically just, it's kind of trying to represent as accurately as possible the conditions in which Indians are living day to day, with conflict between the Muslims and the Hindus, or the overreaching government protocols, and I think it's the NAC governmental body, and how they're able to just spy on anyone whenever they like. Just being able to learn about India's culture through this, and being able to learn about it outside of something like a Bollywood movie, makes it so much more worth it to me. Number 2, Midnight Mass. I talked about it on the show. I'm not going to elaborate. Really good. Go watch it on Netflix. And then number 1, Arcane Season 1. Holy crap. I kind of avoided it because I was like, I'm not a League of Legends person. I'm not going to get this. And it got really good reviews, and I stumbled on it on IMDb. I'm like, this show's in like the top 10 highest rated things of all time. Well, it's got to be at least worth it somehow. I sat down and watched it. I'm like, holy crap, this show is amazing. The world building, the animation, the characters, being able to just tap into the emotional states and the pasts and the psyches and the worldviews of each character, and the conditions they currently live in within this almost class segregated society, while also dealing with these magnificent action set pieces. It's split up into basically 3 acts. One that's our main characters as kids, Powder and Vi, and then it cuts to like 10 years later where conditions have kind of worsened. Characters who are introduced as like smaller roles suddenly become much bigger. There's like a kid that's introduced as just a kid, and he becomes a rebel leader group in Act 2 and Act 3. Being able to see all these characters bounce off of each other and interact with each other was great. And I ended the show, I'm like, that was really good. How did they come up with all of this? And it turns out, like, I the only thing I knew about League of Legends going into this I knew Jinx and I knew Vi were in the game. But once I finished, I looked it up. Almost every like major character in this show is part of the League of Legends game, and I did not know that at all, and I still completely 100% bought into their struggles and their characters without even knowing if anything was a call back to the game, or if, the show doesn't rely on the game. You can go in completely blind to what the game's about or the game's existence and still 100% buy into everything being presented. And that is how you do a good video game adaptation or a good adaptation of a pre-established property, is do not solely rely on your audience to automatically know what you're talking about, because you have to make something that can pull new fans in while still paying respects to the original fans. And this show is the embodiment of how to do this right. And that's why it's my show of the year. So, that is a lot. I'm not going to do a weekly recommendations because pretty much I just gave out 30 recommendations to watch. And since I was out for a month, I think that more than makes up for it. So, you're welcome, tri-state area. So with that being said, if I left out one of your favorite movies of the year or favorite shows of the year, let me know. I know I missed quite a bit. Like I said, Spencer, No Way Home, Nightmare Alley, Mayor of Kingstown or whatever on HBO Max, I've heard is amazing. And I missed like all of the Disney Plus Marvel shows. Whoops. Like I said, many times in the past, I'm getting more and more Marvel fatigue, and the fact that there's just so much more content has just naturally worn me out to go, I just don't think it's worth it to invest in this kind of crap if I'm going to have to, like, every week I have to do some sort of homework so I'm prepared for the next big thing. And there's a reason why I didn't read comics as a kid. And it was precisely because of this. Everything was so interconnected towards, like, I just want to read a story where Moon Knight does his thing and then maybe occasionally teams up with Spider-Man and Punisher or Dr. Voodoo or whatnot. But I don't want to have to then go to the Amazing Spider-Man number 423 and read until Amazing Spider-Man 435 to get the full story and the full scope of what's happening here. I don't want to have to do that. I just want to read one comic run and just enjoy the ride. That's why I love Invincible so much, because it is so self-contained. That's why I liked Super Crooks, because it's in a part of this bigger universe, but it's self-contained. I have an entire superhero universe idea that I have planned out that I want to do either in comics or in TV show form. But each story I have is self-contained, but it pays off for people who have seen other stuff. You just don't have to see it. But what I'm getting this feeling of with the MCU is, well, if you really want to appreciate Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, you must first watch WandaVision and then watch No Way Home. And if you truly want to understand why Shuma Gorath is in here, you're going to have to watch the post-credits scene of the 4th episode of the She-Hulk televisions. And it's like, dude, can we just like have a self-contained story and maybe have wink, wink, nod, nods? Well, that's why I like Daredevil works so much, because it had the references to the Battle of New York or whatnot, but it wasn't a main player in this story. It was its own thing with wink, wink, nod, nods, but it did its own thing. That's what I want out of my comic books, my TV show universes. This is becoming so interconnected to where everything becomes must-watch viewing. When everything's must-watch viewing, then nothing is, to paraphrase or to borrow Syndrome's little thing. So, if that's what you were thinking, that's why it's not on the list. But if anything else that you liked this year, or loved this year, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, press the like button. I don't know what happened to my voice there. Press the like button, press the subscribe button. If you're on Rumble, press the Rumble button, subscribe there. If you're listening on podcast, Spotify, Apple playlist, Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, whatever you listen to podcasts on, follow us there. Give us a 5-star rating. Follow us over on Instagram at the Cinema Lounge. And yeah, I think that takes care of everything. I hope you guys have a new year. And my name has been Garrett Inman, your host of the Cinema Lounge podcast. Today we chilled and talked about my top 20, technically, movies of 2021, as well as my top 10 least favorite movies of 2021, and my top 10 favorite television seasons of 2021. And yeah, that'll be it. Always remember to follow your New Year's resolutions. It's really not that hard to commit to something once you put your mind to it. Or just don't make New Year's resolutions. That's what I do. And that way, I don't have to commit to jack. Yeah. That's it.